So just a second. Yeah, and we are live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you had a quick break. Our next speaker is Imad Khan, and he's going to be talking about building a front end for ML models using Python. We look forward to your talk.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I'll be talking about building a front end for ML models using Python. Who am I? I am a data scientist at Vahan.ai. I'm also the founder of Mantissa Data Science, where we host webinars and meetups to talk about data science and machine learning related concepts. I was co-founder and CTO at Recreate AI, worked as data scientist at Indegene, did my master's in Internet Technologies, TU Braunschweig earlier, my bachelor's from Electronics and Communication, MS Rame Institute of Technology. So that's a little bit on the background of where I'm coming from. Today's agenda is that I will be giving you a small introduction to what are data apps, and then we will look into why they are actually useful and why should we even consider them today. What are the different frameworks to build data apps in Python? There's Voila, Gradio, Panel, Streamlit. We'll go through each of them very quickly and see the different idiosyncrasies of each of them. And at the end, we have some time for question and answers. So let me get started with the introduction to data apps. Traditionally, web apps are built as a combination of the backend technology system and the front-end technology system. So because we are in a Python conference, typical backend frameworks would be Flask, Django, and newly upcoming Fast API. So what you would do if you want to start a web app is you would go to any of these frameworks, set up your database, authentication system, all of these using any of these frameworks. Some of these frameworks already set up a lot of things for you. For example, Django comes with a lot of batteries included. Some of them, Flask, Fast API, are much more minimal. So you decide based on your project requirements as to what backend you want to set up. Now, this is not a simple task. I mean, in the sense that you have to, if you are not coming from that background, you have to have a lot of leveling up, because you want to know what is, how do you maintain sessions, cookies, you want to know what is authentication system, how do you implement that, how do you integrate different applications in your Django or Flask app. So a lot of things are involved in the backend and the database, of course. So a lot of things get involved, routing, database, all of that. And once you've done that, you also want to concentrate on the front-end side of things, which is what the user sees when they visit your website, right? And that is what leads to another plethora of technologies. You might have to learn HTML, you might have to learn CSS, JavaScript, and even in these, there are different flavors that you might have to learn. And for all of these languages have their own frameworks. HTML, for example, the ones you see here, HTML has Bootstrap, CSS has materialized CSS, then JavaScript has Angular, Vue, React, and many other frameworks that keep popping up every day. So all of these put together would require you to create a web app, right? So, and this is, if you're working as a data analyst, business analyst, data scientist, all of this is too much for you to learn at a given point of time, and it takes a lot of time. So that is what data apps try to bridge the gap. That is where they come in, and they say that some of these Streamlit, Gradio, Dash, Panel, Voila say that you just need to learn certain key concepts that are part of our frameworks, and then we will help you implement what you might take a lot of time in traditional apps using data app frameworks in minutes. Why are they useful? I'm going to very quickly take you through a use case, like a kind of a story. Let's say you're a data scientist, you work with Python all day, you're really happy with the tool set that you have. You have NumPy, you have Pandas for your data manipulation, you have the Seaborn, where you use which you use for visualization, you have your scikit-learn, TensorFlow for your machine learning, and maybe you're working in a Jupyter Lab or Jupyter Notebook. And the entire ecosystem, you're really happy there, you're working there, doing your stuff, but then your boss comes in and says that, hey, I want to see your results, show me your results. And then he says, I want to see them in any of these formats. Show me, either get me a paper printout, or show me on my browser, show me on the Excel, just dump it there and show me the results there, or on the desktop. So the first, third, and fourth are not really scalable, are not really something that you can update once you have delivered. So that's where browsers come in, and that's where we will see how you can help your boss get the results. So you go start working on how do you really help your boss get the results. You see all these browser technologies, and then your face becomes just like this. Because there is so much to understand. There's so many new concepts. There's tags, there's DOMs, there's event, there's states, there's props. So all of these frameworks come with their own terminologies as well. There is framework fatigue, because every other day technologies in the front end keep changing. There's long deployment processes that you have to learn and implement. So all of these start worrying you, right? And then these new age data app solutions come to your rescue because they allow you to use readily built UI components. They allow you to select your framework as per your requirement, which is, again, do you want to just expose your Jupyter notebook? Do you want to create a Python script which directly can be converted into a web app? And deployments, they try to make it as simple as possible. Some of these tools make it possible for you to deploy within one click. So this is the motivation behind trying to even look at data apps, because if you are somebody who is not very well versed with web technologies, these help you bridge the gap. Now I'm just going to quickly go through each of these frameworks and try and introduce different concepts that are part of these frameworks. So Voila is the first framework that we'll be looking at. It's an open source framework. It turns Jupyter notebooks into standalone apps. And the way to install this is pip install Voila. Go to your terminal, just say pip install Voila, and it will get installed. So how do you create a new project? How do you go? This is a bare bones walkthrough of how you can create a Voila project. You create a new Jupyter notebook with all the text and interactivity required in the app or dashboard. So Jupyter Notebooks or Jupyter Lab is a Project Jupyter ecosystem where you can, which serves as a kind of an IDE where you can write code and see your results. So you create a Jupyter notebook, all the text and interactivity that you want, and then that's it. You're done. After you do that, you go to your terminal, you say Voila, write the name of your notebook.ipynb, and then enter, and then it gives you with a link that you can expose or rather share with your teammates or your boss. It's as simple as that. Voila automatically runs all the cells that you have in your notebook behind the scenes. So that's what it does. In case of Jupyter Lab, Voila provides a Jupyter Lab extension that displays a Voila preview of the notebook and assignment. So you can simultaneously see both and do. When it comes to deployment, Voila doesn't really support deployment per se. There's no enterprise solution or anything, but you can use the Jupyter notebook that you've written to deploy it on cloud platforms. So this is a little bit about Voila. This is a small demo that I prepared for each of this framework. In this demo, what you will essentially see is that there is a very popular machine learning dataset called Iris dataset. And what you can do with all these different frameworks, one part of it, what I've implemented here, is that you can change the slider or you can change the value and filter the dataset based on the slider length, based on the sepal length. So the code you see on the left is the code you would write in your Jupyter notebook. You might use IPython, and basically Voila behind the scenes uses IPython widgets, which are developed as part of the Project Jupyter. And what you do is you write your function, and then you update your slider as people change the value on it, and that will get updated and filter the data frame. So that is the output you see on the right is what was generated from the notebook on the left. I put all of these in the GitHub repo and I'll share at the end of the talk. Gradio, it's also an open source framework. It converts Python functions to UI. The way to install this is pip install Gradio. And the way to really go about this is you open a new Python file on a Jupyter notebook, like how we did earlier. You write the code you want to execute and display within a function. So you basically create a Python function for the code you want to expose. And you use Gradio's interface class to build the UI. What is the input, or what does the core Gradio interface class take? It takes three things. It takes a function that you want to expose, it takes the inputs that you want to take from the user, and it takes the outputs that you want to show to the user. Once you give these three things, and the inputs, of course, have to be parameterized in the function itself. And then after you have all of this, you have the function, you have already defined the interface class with the function input output. You will use interfaces launch to launch the UI, and that's it. So that is how you can get started very quickly with a Gradio project. And if you're on a notebook, you write all of these, you execute the cell, and then it generates right below your cell. So basically, it generates right there. Or if you have a Python file, it will generate a new link. Some of the input-output components that you can use are text boxes. You can give a number input. You can give a slider input like we saw earlier. You can do a checkbox. You can do a radio. You can do a drop-down, image, audio, file, data frames. Many different kinds of inputs you can give. You can ask the user to give, and also output similarly. Deployment, Gradio makes it really simple to deploy. If while you're setting up the interface, if you say share is equal to true, it will give you a public shareable link. It's as simple as that. Just say share is equal to true in the GR interface. If you want more details, you can go into the docs. But if you just do that, it gives you a shareable link hosted on Gradio.app, and then you're ready.
More minutes.
Sure. Again, the same demo, but implemented in Gradio. On the left, you see the code you need to generate the application on the right. And on the right, I can just input the sepal length I want, submit it, and get the output filtered for the input sepal length that I have given. Panel, I'm going to just go through very quickly. Open source converts Jupyter notebooks or scripts to panels, apps, dashboards, pip install panel. How do you create a new project, write the code you want to execute, display within a function. Here you use panel's interact function, which essentially auto-generates the UI for you, given the function's arguments. And then you can layer your layout or rather arrange your layout using panel components. You can say, I want 1 row, 2 columns, or 2 rows, 1 column. So you can use panel components to lay out your app or dashboard. Different components include pane, widget, panel. And there are different ways of creating panel apps. You can use the interact way, you can use the reactive way, or the callback way. Deployment support is not there, but you can deploy it on cloud platforms. And here's a quick panel demo. Again, same code on the left, panel code on the left, and selection on the right, and the app on the right, where you can move the slider and select whatever value you want for that impulse sepal. Okay, very quickly moving on to Dash. Dash is an open source solution with enterprise, solution. This is a bit more detailed and bit more development work has gone into this because it has an enterprise solution. Pip install Dash is the way you install. Open a new Python file. The components. So Dash, the way it organizes, it has different layout. It has a layout that you can define using HTML elements. And then you have some core components that have already been defined by the Dash team. Use those to create your. So some of the HTML components are HTML div, HTML-P, HTML h1. Some of the Dash core components are drop-down, slider, input, text area, checklist, radio items. So all of these components you can use to first create a layout using the HTML components and then add the interactivity using the core components. Deployment, Dash provides an enterprise solution where they have authentication, scaling, and all these features for your teams, basically. Or if you want to use the open source version, you can go ahead and deploy it on Heroku or different cloud platforms. Here's a quick demo of how you would do this in Dash. Again, you set up the app, you create the layout, and then you set up what are your outputs and input callbacks, and then you update this table based on the selection that is being made. And this is how the output on the right looks. Streamlit, this is one very new framework that has come up, I think, within a year and a half. This is also an open source with enterprise solution. Pip install Streamlit. The way to do this is to create a new project. This is a very simple framework. If you compare all the other frameworks, this is very simple, very quickly you can get up to speed. So open new Python file, you say import Streamlit, you use different widgets, text data widget, execute Streamlit, run file name.py, and go to the browser. So some of them are like streamlit.text, streamlit.write. Some of the widgets are like button, checkbox, radio, again, different UI components. Just streamlit.that, and then it's ready. On the deployment front, you can use Streamlit Share, which is a new cloud offering that they have come up with. You just create a Streamlit app, click on the deployment, and it's already ready for you to share. Or you can use Heroku or other cloud providers for sharing purposes. Again, if you look at the demo, the number of lines that it requires is very minimal. You just need 4 or 5 lines to get a demo of this kind running. And that's it for today. I will be happy to take a few questions if there are any.
Thank you for an excellent talk. It was really nice. Sorry, we kind of constrained you to 15 minutes. We have time for a few questions.
Sure.
So the first question is from Jaydev. He's asking if the character you created for the boss and stuff, was it generated with Comic Gen? That's the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Thanks. The second question that's there is, Kiran is asking if Dash supports database connections.
Dash, yes, it does.
Okay. And the final question from Shashidhar is, which one do you recommend for the enterprise?
Which one do I recommend? If you want to really quickly get up to speed, like I said, Streamlit is really cool because 2 to 3 lines and then you're set for a demo like this. But for Dash or Voila and all of that, it takes a lot of understanding of the concepts of the framework itself. But Streamlit makes it really simple.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the nice session.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. See you around.
Bye.